Welcome into the Thunder Basketball Universe presented by COOP Ale Works. We're coming to you live from Houston, Texas. We're recording this on Tuesday, January 31st. That means the Thunder tips off against the Houston Rockets. Tomorrow, you can catch that game on Valley Sports, Oklahoma. Until then, we've got 3/4 of the broadcast crew here with you right now. Myself, Nick Gallo, and TV analyst Michael Cage, who I just found out today has the nickname Juice Man.
Juice Man.
Windex Man. And my favorite, John Shaft.
Oh, you got them all.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
We found out there's an interesting connection between that John Shaft nickname and somebody here in Houston, actually, right now.
Yeah, that's true. And the guy's name is John Lucas, who's assistant coach with the Rockets. I played with him for a couple of seasons in Seattle. And he noticed me wearing leather. And I, kind of like, I like to dress, comfortable. And sometimes I dress crazy, like my hair back then. And he was saying, you know what? And one day at shoot around, he just started yelling, John Shaft. I was like, well, who is he talking to? And he just kept walking up, John Shaft. And he walked right up to me and everybody just bust out laughing. And that's how that name started. And I knew exactly what he was saying because I knew who John Shaft was,
of course.
The detective from the 70s that came over to the 90s. And, everybody kind of knows him as probably being Samuel Jackson right now.
Uh-huh.
But that was Richard Roundtree back in the day.
Okay. All right.
My God.
That's a great story, man.
That was so good. That was what, your first year in
Seattle? That's right.
In Seattle, so what year was that?
That'd be 19. Let's see, I had just won the rebounding championship, so it'd be the start of the 89 season.
So
Okay.
that was probably like year after Windex Man.
That's
so,
right.
So John Shaft came right after Windex Man.
That's right. You know what? Windex was first.
There we go.
That's right.
We had to get the timeline.
And when
on the nickname.
was Juice Man?
Juice Man came later in the mid 90s when I joined the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Okay.
I started.
Please
my
tell the
whole
Juice Man
juicing
story.
thing. Okay,
I learned this literally right before we started recording, and I love it. It's so
you
good.
know what's funny is that juice bars are around all the time. Now you can go to any juice bar.
Yeah.
You can order it in. You can do whatever you want. Back then, there were no juice bars, and I was really into health and fitness. And one of the things I found out about how healthy juice was, vitamins and nutrients from it. So I said, all right, you know what? I really like juicing, but we go out on the road back then a lot longer than they do on road trips. So I bought a juicer and I started taking it on the road with me with the Cleveland Cavaliers. And the guys were like, hesitant, real suspect. What are you doing, man? You got this juicer.
You got this thing under your arm as you're walking into the hotel, Mike?
It took almost two people to get it off the plane. And I could roll it. No, it wasn't quite that big, but it was big.
Oh my God.
It was not a travel size one. And so I started saying, hey, try this juice. Hey, Hot Rod Williams, try this juice. Terrell Brandon, try this juice. Mark Price, try this juice. And I would give him the sweet juice, like the fruit juices.
Yeah,
None of the vegetable stuff.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
Not the kale smoothies.
Not the kale smoothie. No. Wheatgrass, no. I said they'll never try it
But
again.
still, that was pretty healthy for back then.
It
guys,
was.
So
Hey,
good.
And back then,
Yeah.
you know what? And they liked it. And so they started, when we go on the road, they knew I took my juicer with me. Hey, Cage, you got any leftover?
Michael Cage's
I say-
juice bar, open for business.
Exactly. And it became a thing by the end of the season. Now, here's the closer on my story. Everybody loved the juice by Christmas. So I said, how do I get these guys to stop having me make juice for an army every time I'm on the
Right.
road? They were starting to come over my house when we were in Cleveland.
Oh, my God.
I said, so guess what? This is a true story, folks. For Christmas, every single Cleveland Cavaliers player got a Juice Man Jr. from Michael Cage.
That's amazing.
That's so sweet.
How about that?
Hey,
Yeah.
I mean, you were the veteran setting the tone. This is a guy that played 15 years in the NBA, battling with Patrick Ewing and
absolutely.
Hakeem Olajuwon,
Oh,
taking
man.
elbows from
Yeah.
Dale Ellis. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to do something to help
Right.
your body for those 15
And we
years.
didn't get the help you got now.
Hey,
Yeah.
you don't earn the nickname Iron Man
No.
without being Juice Man
That's
first.
right.
Hey, you know what? A lot of that little stuff that we were laughing about back then helped me stay healthy
Yeah.
and eventually get that to the point where I played in 736 consecutive games, which I
Iron
was
Man.
proud of. And that's something
You
that
should be.
I don't really, I didn't really profess it back then or even in my post career, but I was more proud of that, staying healthy for almost 8 years than winning an NBA rebounding championship.
And that's a top 10 consecutive streak in the NBA of all time, isn't that, Mike?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
It's
So
impressive.
I was really proud of it because, AC Green and myself
Mm-hmm.
and the other guy was Randy Smith, who we were chasing. That guy was like 936 consecutive
wow.
games.
Wow.
So it was like a little quiet honor badge that we both were pursuing at the time, AC Green and myself, and then it kept us healthy because we were trying to really work to stay. And back then, man, we didn't get the help of all the trainers, and I love what they're doing today. You got a trainer, assistant, and then you got the strength and conditioning staff. Back then the strength and conditioning coach and staff was the team trainer. He did it all. He did everything. If you needed to talk to somebody about a personal problem, you call the trainer.
Yeah. He'll know what to do. He'll know what to do.
That poor guy. Come on, man. I feel bad.
This got off on such a long tangent, but it's so good. Okay, the other thing that came across our desk today, very, very fun news. The NBA announced today that Jalen Williams out of Santa Clara and Josh Giddey were both named to the NBA's Rising Stars game for this year's All-Star Weekend. So some really fun news. This is Jalen Williams, obviously the rookie, his first time attending the Rising Stars Challenge, and Josh Giddey's second consecutive year. So some really fun activities on the horizon for these guys during February and All-Star Weekend.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a very busy All-Star Weekend in Salt Lake City for the Thunder. And
you two are going to be there. Yeah, I know that now because you got to cover a lot of people now.
A lot of work.
And just a reminder, the Rising Stars format's changed a little bit.
Yeah.
There's the incorporation of 7 G League players as well. And so there's going to be 4 teams of 7 players each. They're going to play 3 different games, so kind of like a Final Four tournament, so to speak. The coaches of those teams will all be former NBA players, so it should be pretty fun. We'll find out exactly where Josh and J-Dub are going to line up, and could be fun to see them on the same team or squaring off against each other. Could be kind of fun, too.
The 12th and 13th Thunder players to be recognized at that Rising Stars Challenge. Mike, these 2 guys, obviously, they've had incredible seasons. I want to talk about Josh for a second, just because he continues to grow, kind of add to his game, work and hone on his game. What are you seeing from him in his second year?
I'm seeing a more polished Josh Giddey. And what we've had now is more bigger than a sample size, because last season he got his 100th game in this year, and still not a whole lot of games, but what you're seeing is the consistency. And he's starting to use his God-given talents, man. He's 6'8". Is there another 6'8" point guard in the league? I don't know. I don't think so, but he's really like a unicorn at that position. And some of the stuff that I'm seeing him do, just his rounding out his game. He's still got a long runway. He's very young still, not even 21. Come on, man. And he's racking up triple doubles. I've seen him really just settle into that position this year where he's not only getting people involved, because he's so unselfish with the basketball. You almost want to tell him, shoot, but he's learning that, look, you know what? I got to get my teammates involved first. And when I get the team going, and I'll make that decision whether or not I'm going to call my number, that's the answer to your question. That maturity that he's starting to show with the basketball, because I've always said, and I said it on the air too, being a point guard in this league, Lawson, you were a point guard in college.
I was.
It's a big responsibility.
Definitely. Because
everybody expecting you, hey, when am I going to get a shot? Well, we got to run this play first. I got the coach, I got the player over here saying, look, I want a shot. And then you got to, make sure you keep your game sharp out there offensively. So I think, for me being a former pro, it's one of the hardest positions to learn in the NBA, and Josh is starting to understand that. And what we're seeing is a rounded player. And all he needs to do is just continue to just rinse, wash, repeat. January. January's been great for him.
And what's fascinating is this game here in Houston is going to be his 100th career game. So he's barely across what would be the equivalent
so he's
of a
not
full
even
NBA
at 100
season.
right now.
He just had his 99th game against Golden State. And yet, this is a guy who's really tapping into and understanding who he is as a player. He's not playing outside of himself. I think really over the last 2 months, really since December started, he's played with so much more physicality on both ends of the floor, sort of recognizing he's got the frame to be an impactful player. And in half of his games this year, he's had at least 10, 5, and 5. I mean, that's exactly the wheelhouse that for this Thunder team to be successful, if Josh Giddey is tapping into impacting the game on all 3 levels, he doesn't need to score 30 points for this team. He needs to get offense initiated. He needs to be physical on the glass, and he needs to hold his own defensively. And we're seeing some of that too, aren't we, Paris?
Yeah, he had a season-high 3 steals in the Thunder's last game against Golden State. We're continuing to see that was a focus of his really coming into this season, was kind of taking steps forward on that defensive end. We've seen him really use his strength, his physicality, his size to his advantage on the defensive end, and his engagement, his activity has also increased as well. And I love what he said. So I was with him last season when he was at that Rising Stars game, and I love what he said. He was like, the best part of this was just meeting my peers across the NBA, because you have to realize this is a guy that grew up in Australia on the other side of the world, didn't play AAU ball, wasn't going through the circuit of, American basketball. And so this is really like the first time you got to like meet the guys that are around his age in the NBA, guys like Cade Cunningham. And he said that was the best part of all of it, was getting a chance to kind of meet these guys and meet them for the first time.
That's got to be an eye-opening experience for him, because we got to remember he's still a young player.
Yep.
He's only in his second season, and just over halfway through his second season, and to be exposed to all your peers, the guys you see that mostly just on a night-to-night basis, and to have that downtime with them, and kind of, that's why I think you develop that camaraderie around the league, and you start to understand these guys are no different than you. You know what? They're trying to be better and better each day.
Yep.
And you make friendships that way. I mean, you beat the crap out of each other on the court, but when the game is over, like me, when you retire, you start, hey, are you my friend?
Are we friends? are you my friend? Not after you block my shot, Cage. We're not friends.
And I think J-Dub's going to kind of get that same experience this year too. I mean, in a different way, J-Dub has so much more stateside experience than Josh did, but very under-recruited player. Was not on Division I radars until the very end of his high school career. Was recruited as a 6-foot point guard, turns into a 6'6" small forward or shooting guard by the end of his college career. He's playing in the West Coast Conference, so there's no other Santa Clara guys coming into the NBA like behind him immediately outside of Steve Nash, who just say that they weren't taking the same classes from the same professors. And so here's J-Dub with a great opportunity to go to Salt Lake City as well and get connected with some of these other guys too. Yeah,
had himself an incredible start to his rookie campaign. Western Conference Rookie of the Month for October and November. Using that 7'2" wingspan, Michael Cage, I can only imagine what you're seeing from Jalen Williams this season.
Well, he just, every night I think he surprises you, because you go, man, he can't keep making that shot all the time. He likes to drive left and finish right.
Yep.
That's a hard shot.
It is.
I used to try that shot when I was a player. No, it was like over the back, over the rim, air ball, shoot. It's a tough shot. And he's got that down. And I saw something last night against Golden State. I saw him drive hard right and finish right.
Yeah.
Man, off the glass. You remember that shot?
Yep.
Yeah.
Blew right past his defender. Yeah.
And he's still just a sample size. This is game 50. It's 51 tomorrow night against the Rockets. So he's still kind of like, the scouting report is still coming in on him, but they're saying he likes to go left and finish right. Yeah, okay, we kind of dismissed that last night. And I think that, watching him shoot the three, those 2 big threes he hit on Friday night, late in the ball game against the Cleveland Cavaliers, you just don't see that from a rookie. And I thought he lined up, he took the shot, didn't think about it, knocked it down, and it was huge for the Thunder.
And his game is not predicated on his outside shooting, but it's his rookie year. And if he adds that to his game, watch out, because if this is a guy that can knock down, catch and shoot threes in addition to everything he's doing off the bounce, playing off cuts, being in the dunker spot, like he's going to be a handful for teams to guard as the secondary offensive weapon alongside Shea and Josh. The other thing that J-Dub has done here in the month of January is defend like crazy. He has used that 7'2" wingspan. He has 38 combined steals and blocks in the month of January. And in 14 games, that average would put him in the top 5 in the NBA in steals and blocks combined on the season. So if he's able to kind of maintain that type of effectiveness, that type of disruption on the defensive end, he's going to skyrocket in terms of where he stands amongst his peers defensively.
And the thing that he really has going for him that we've noticed all season long is just his mental consistency. He doesn't get too high. He doesn't get too low. You remember he had that injury that kept him out early in his rookie campaign. He came back from that, worked back from that, and Coach Dagnall has pointed out time and time again just how quickly he picks things up and how steady he stays in terms of when he encounters adversity. He just kind of rides the wave and keeps going through it. So that explains the great season that he's having. And so if we're going to talk rising stars, I knew we were going to have Michael Cage on the podcast today and on this hour-and-a-half flight from Oklahoma City to Houston. I had too much time on my hands. So Michael, I did some research on this Rising Stars Challenge. Okay. So I'm gonna take you back. The very first Rising Stars Challenge, it started in 1994. And it was in Minnesota. Okay. So that was the first, and it was technically called the Rookie Challenge back then.
The Rookie Challenge
didn't become the Rising Stars Challenge until 2012. This history report, I'm loving it. I have not gotten a chance to do this in so long. Okay, so my question for you, Michael Cage, in 1994, can you name the MVP of the Rookie Challenge?
1994.
Nick, you can help if you think you have an idea.
Wow, that is going deep.
I know. So you have to think about who was maybe one of the top picks in 93.
I could have guessed the next year might have been Jason Kidd or Grant Hill, but 93.
Jason.
I don't remember that draft class
that
quite
was
as much.
After Tim Hardaway, so these guys were after Tim Hardaway. Huh?
Sorry, you're a little close.
Oh, really close. Okay.
You're close. I got excited. You're on the right track.
Oh,
you're on the right track. Think Florida.
Glenn Rice? No, that was later because he's a little bit younger.
Think Orlando.
Well,
not Tim.
Oh, okay. Penny Hardaway.
Penny Hardaway. Yes, 1994.
He was the very first one.
Rookie Challenge MVP. Wow. Penny Hardaway.
Nice.
Yeah.
He was a terrific player too.
He was.
Super good. Why don't we see a lot more highlights of him and some of the great things he was able to do on the floor? We always see these other players, but we don't see Penny Hardaway. That's a great research that you did too, to actually tie him in.
Too much time on a plane.
I mean, his size, his height, his length, his skill set would have definitely fit in today's game.
Yeah, he's athletic. Yeah. Mm-hmm. He could drive. He could shoot. And he had a great commercial too. See it with the little doll.
How can I forget?
Mike's Juice Man commercial didn't quite rise to that level, did it, Mike?
I know. Missed opportunity.
I broke it out too soon.
There's still time.
I should have broke it out on the back nine of my career instead of the turning point of my career.
All right, we're going to brainstorm Michael Cage's Juice Man commercial. And until then, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this.
COOP Ale Works is the proud sponsor of Thunder Basketball Universe. Brewers of the fan favorites F5 IPA and 99-calorie Ice Chest IPA. You'll find those and many more COOP beers at retailers across Oklahoma. Learn more at CoopAleWorks.com.
All right, the Thunder is completely wrapped up January, and they've wrapped up January with a game against the Golden State Warriors. We've got to talk about it. It was a wild game. The Thunder fell in that game 128-120, but not without a fight. And so we really need to talk about this because the Thunder nearly rallied back from down 21 points. After a lopsided first quarter, the Thunder outscored Golden State in the remaining three quarters. Ended up being 100-90 over those three quarters. Just that game overall. Mike, just what did you see in terms of the resilience in that game and the fight that the Thunder showed?
Well, you're playing a defending champions. I mean, they're very good defensively. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They're well coached, and they come at you methodically. Mm-hmm. And there are some things they're going to come at you with, and that's three-point shooting. And they bombarded the Thunder in that first quarter when they went up 38-20. And that's why you say to yourself, look, you know what, you look at the long game always, and there's a lot more time left in that ball game. And by the time the Thunder got to a halftime, they were only down 5. Mm-hmm. So I really like that. I'm going, okay, all right, you fought back into it. The Warriors are thinking, all right, man, this is the youngest team in the league now. I mean, how did they, erase that 18-point deficit? And then the game's tied through three quarters. Mm-hmm. And in the fourth quarter, I think that when you're playing against, what I like most of all is they weren't starstruck. Because some of these guys, first time up close, playing against J. Will, J. Dub, first time seeing Klay Thompson, Steph Curry, Draymond Green, these iconic figures for the Warriors in their championship seasons. Hey, didn't back down at all. Just kept battling. And I love the way they played. They played collectively as a team. Everybody stepped up. J. Will hitting those threes. Obviously, Giddey coming up big with the 21 points. Shea was fantastic again. Yeah, he's going to be an all-star. I'm going to say it, man. You just cannot have that guy not be an all-star with the kind of overall play he's been playing with. They just really, I thought, didn't let go, because you could have let go in that first quarter. Look, all right, they're the defending champions. We know it. We just wanted to get out here and play. No, they said, hey, man, we going to come here and we going to battle. And that's what it turned out.
Right.
Well, and the thing that stuck out to me is, like, Michael, you just listed all the names. Well, they all played. And something that's been bugging Golden State all season is just health. They haven't really been healthy like they were heading into these last couple games. And so OKC got Golden State's full punch. I mean, you saw the way that they executed. Yeah. They execute fast. I mean, that's something that you don't maybe pick up as much on TV, but when you're courtside like we are, those offensive actions that Golden State gets into are lightning fast, and they know exactly where the roll man's going to be. They know exactly where the diver's going to be. They know exactly how to get those guys off split actions on the side. And Draymond and their bigs up top, they orchestrate all of that. They know exactly where the next pass is supposed to be. You even see in transition a guy like Steph, he's like waving that, hey, Clay's behind me. He's the real trail man, and he's running through to kind of distract the defense. I mean, those guys are all completely tied in together, and it's a fascinating learning opportunity for that Thunder team to get maybe a little distracted by the three-point shooting. They let up some of those backdoor cuts in that first quarter, but then realize, like, okay, hold on. We're in this game. We're here. They're flesh and blood like us. And guess what? We can execute with lightning precision too.
Right.
And this Thunder team is learning how to obviously not play to that exact same style, but play with that same type of tempo and that relentlessness in the offensive end that just leaves the defense gassed a little bit.
And we should mention it was the first meeting against the Warriors of 4 meetings for the rest of this season. So, like you mentioned, Mike, the very first time that J-Will, J-Dub, these guys are seeing the Warriors for the first time, all of those lessons, they're now on film, they're on tape, they're going to go back, they're going to look at it, and then next time they will be ready from the outset, you have to imagine. And just going back to your point about the first quarter, Coach Dagnall said after the game there was kind of a boogeyman in that first quarter, and then once the Thunder kind of opened the door, realized, oh, nobody's there,
right?
They hit the ground running and got after it. And so now with all of those lessons and that experience on tape, you have to imagine that'll translate next game.
Yeah, I thought they did a good job of winning the final 3 quarters.
Yeah.
And for a young team, second youngest team in NBA history, youngest team for back-to-back years in the association, you're playing the champs, man. I mean, you're like, and you know it in your head, but when that ball goes up and that first quarter is in the books, you go, you know what? Just like you said, they're flesh and blood, just like we are.
Yeah.
I want to beat them, and I thought that they were extremely competitive. And they exposed some areas in the Warriors where I'm thinking the Warriors are probably saying, okay, we got out of here with one.
Yeah.
Because, these guys came back on us. And it's hard to come back on a team like the Warriors that shoots the three-point shot so well.
Right.
Because they can run up the score really quick.
Yep.
Just like they did in that first quarter when they were up 38-20.
Yep.
Just like that. And you were like, well, wow. And they had 21 assists at halftime, and you withstood all of that. You didn't look at those numbers, and you just slowly started to tighten the wrench. I think that's a sign of a team that's starting to turn inexperience into experience.
Right.
And that's what the whole season is about, is gaining that kind of experience, because nobody plays really like the Golden State Warriors. A lot of teams try to emulate them, but very few can play like them because they have a system.
Yeah.
And you're right, Gallo. The way they play and move the basketball, it's going somewhere.
Yes.
And everybody knows where it's going. And all 5 of those guys out there are basically quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If you think about it, that's a problem. And the Thunder withstood that barrage and got back in that ball game.
And that's why the Thunder is playing the way that it is, with 5 guys on the floor who can be decision makers at all time. It's the new wave of the future. And I think, Paris, to your point, like, the Thunder got some of those things under control. The 14 points in the paint in the first quarter, well, it was only about 30 after that for Golden State. And so when you started to take away the easy ones, the layups, the cuts around the rim, well, everything else is a contested 3. And yes, some of those are still going to go in, but OKC was able to take the 4-time defending champs to the brink on multiple occasions and force them to make the shots and make the plays. These were contested shots. That baseline jumper by Thompson, I mean, that's a tough shot.
But you chase him off the line.
Yes,
exactly.
And he's got to make a pull-up jumper. You can live with that, I think.
You'll live with that.
And so OKC, they drew to within a 1-possession game on 3 separate occasions in the fourth quarter, had that amazing crowd at Paycom Center swelling behind their backs, and 1 or 2 things break their way, and it's a different story. And the cool thing is just they're in the fight.
Yeah.
They're like, they're in the great game now. These games all, have that juice to them. The Thunder has gotten everybody else's attention to this point.
Yep.
And, maybe in the past couple of years, they didn't have everybody's full attention. Well, they got it now.
Well, and what's interesting too, and this is like a little small comment, but I'm analyzing the game all the time. I'm saying to myself, they made Steve Kerr keep Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson on the floor.
And Jordan Poole.
To the final second.
Yep.
That says a whole lot about the Thunder and the way they played.
Start of a 3-game in 4 nights for Golden State.
And
I'm sure that Steve Kerr did not want to have to do that.
I know
he wasn't thinking he was going to have to do that after that first quarter, but the Thunder had other plans. And the Thunder's certainly gotten everyone's attention. Part of that has to do with how the Thunder has been playing during this month of January. It has been a very strong month for this group. That was just one game.
Right.
And those experiences have been very wide throughout this month of January. And it started with that incredible, emphatic win against the Boston Celtics on January 3rd. Remember, the Thunder put up 150 points. It was an incredible game. But here's where that experience started to add up for the Thunder. That was the first night of a home road back-to-back. You remember Michael Cage? We all got into Orlando in the wee hours in the morning. We were super tired. And the guys, they fell to the Magic. And then about a week later, they were in a very similar situation. Yeah. Big win against Philly on the road in Philly, and then had to go
healthy
Philly team with Joel Embiid, James Harden. Everybody was
Tobias Harris.
Everyone was on the floor. Big win. Then you have to go and answer again. Go back to Chicago, back to the Central Time Zone, and go take care of business. And the Thunder took that lesson from that Boston-Orlando stretch, applied it in that game against Chicago, and got the job done. Those are the sort of experiences that the Thunder was able to start stacking up. And you look at the record, 9-5 in the month of January, and that's great. But what the Thunder's really starting to pull away here are how they were able to be successful and what they can carry forward through the rest of the season. Remember, this team is very process-based, not outcome-based.
No doubt about it. And I think that we've gotten that perspective lately from guys who have said, effectively, I mean, this is maybe a little bit blunter than the way that they've said it, but we've had a good month, but we haven't done anything yet.
Right.
And I think it's very healthy for a young team that could be flying high, that could be really feeling themselves, to have some perspective. And Mike, you know better than either of the two of us, 1 month in the NBA is very little in the span of a career.
You only remember for your last game.
Right.
Sorry.
Right. And for the span of the arc of what this team wants to do and what this team wants to be, and the teams that you were on, Michael, and what they tried to build over the course of a season, you can take that 1 month and you can build off of it, but you can't rest on it.
I agree. And there's been some staples that the Thunder have stuck by. And I'm really, impressed that they've been able to do this consistently. Is turnover teams in the league. And this has been a big turnover month for the Thunder in terms of converting those turnovers into points. I mean, currently they're tied for first in the NBA in turning their opponents over at over almost 17 a game.
Yep.
You're talking about the youngest team in the league turning over the other part of the 29 teams at the best rate. That's sustained. I didn't think that was sustainable. I said, look, you might spike because young guys, they get excited and all of a sudden they get into foul trouble. We really don't see a lot of nights where our young players get into foul trouble. We have very few nights where they get into foul trouble, but we turn teams over at the best rate than any team in the league because of that. And you're right, the month of January, Paris, I thought that 4-game trip to Miami. Now we all know how that Miami game turned out. Yep. There's too many free throws by one team. I won't say which team.
And one player.
And one player.
Jimmy Butler lived at that free throw line.
I'm just saying, that started everything because I think they realized that we were so close. And then you take that to Philly and you beat a healthy Philadelphia team that basically pounded you in December back in Oklahoma City. Remember that?
Right.
On New Year's Eve.
Without James Harden and all those guys. Yep. So, you see the development there.
Yeah.
And you see the focus and you see the concentration. All right, you know what? We beat Philly. We're not going to rest on our laurels.
Yeah.
They'll go into Chicago and beat Chicago, which was impressive.
Yeah.
And then how about ending up in Brooklyn?
I know.
And beating Brooklyn?
Yep.
We're talking about top teams in the league now.
Yep.
With the top records.
On the road.
On the road at their place. So, it's something that I think they're learning how to be pros.
Yeah.
And some of these guys it's their first time going to Philadelphia.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
First time going to Chicago and
Yeah.
playing at, the United Center. So, but there again, like last night against the Warriors, they weren't starstruck. And they just basically said, look, you know what, 94 by feet. Does he have red blood in it? Oh, he's got red blood.
Yeah.
Game on.
Game on, time to go. And you're talking about the defensive end, Michael, which I think is so impressive and certainly an area the Thunder wants to hang their hat on every single night. I'm just going to throw some numbers out here of the Thunder's offense over this month. Okay, 121 points per game during the month of January. That's the third highest scoring month in OKC history. 12.1 turnovers per game. That is the fifth fewest in OKC history. So a low turnover month, high scoring month. Nick, I want to get your perspective on this because the offense of this group, obviously, it's been a high scoring year for OKC. What did you see in this month that kind of led to what these numbers we're seeing here?
Well, more cohesion and more of that in sync quality that we were talking about with the Golden State displays to absolute perfection. Obviously, the Thunder is not there yet, but they have surged from a bottom 5 offense last year to a top 10 offense this year. I mean, they are just continuing to thrive. They have one of the we mentioned this on the podcast last week. Yep. They have one of the 10 biggest leaps in terms of points per game from one year to the next in NBA history. So this is a group that so much was made of like how the ball gets shared between some of the key ball handlers on this team and, what is Shea and Josh and how is their role. It's like they've dismissed all of that and they've just figured out how to play with the 5-man unit. And how does that 5-man unit actually coalesce together? How does that generate the best shot for the team? And so you're seeing that any of these sort of how do we figure this out is actually done with the whole group and not between individual 2-man players or 2-man units. And it's all predicated on the selflessness and the quickness of being able to get the ball out of guys' hands, out of those lead playmakers' hands, and eventually it's coming back around.
And you spent this month, without your front line.
Right.
Yep.
Says a whole lot, about the guys really buying into what they're, what's happening out there on the floor, the defense, the turning over. And, the small ball, if you had to play it at times, everybody in the league plays small ball.
Yep.
And if you can play big ball, everybody plays big ball. And sometimes by default, injuries like the Thunder's front line has been decimated, you have to play smaller at times. And they've done a great job this month of utilizing it. Mark's done a great job of utilizing the rotation of players. Yeah. And Jay Will got thrown in the fire and he stepped up. Aaron Wiggins stepped up. Everybody stepped up that wasn't getting a whole lot of time. So just playing the game on ready. And it's really, it becomes where we talk about, I know it sounds like a cliche, these interchangeable parts, and they're asked to do more with less time, but everybody is under that same microscope and they're understanding their roles, and teams are struggling with that right now. They're struggling with the fact, how is this team able to score 121 points on average in the month of January? How is this team one of the top teams at turning you over in the NBA, and they're the youngest? That doesn't work.
And how are they doing it with Kenrich Williams at center? Or how are they doing it with a guy in Jalen Williams, Jay Will, who's played more minutes with the G League than he has with the
when you peel back
NBA
those
team.
Layers, that's really
Aaron Wiggins steps in for Lou Dort against Cleveland, and no problem. The Thunder take care of business in that game and dominate that second half. And it's just incredible to see the way that OKC has just, all right, you're up, you're next.
And the way the Thunder's been playing offensively allows guys to step in seamlessly when they step into a game. I think of a guy like Isaiah Joe, who comes off the bench. He had an incredible month of January as well, knocking down threes left and right. But as soon as he steps onto the floor, he's immediately into the action. There's no got to get my rhythm going, got to, feel it out for a second. No, it's you're open, knock it down, shot. And so you see him step into the lineup and knock down shots. You see a guy like Aaron Wiggins step into a starting role and really just be a part of a cohesive unit out there. Nothing gets thrown off when different guys step in. It's like you're saying, interchangeable parts. And that speaks to a stat that you brought up today in practice that apparently blew Coach Dagnall's mind, which was the fact that the Thunder bench has now made 300 threes this season. And I think part of that, too, speaks to the fact that these guys come in off the bench and immediately they're in the flow of the offense, they're in the rhythm, and they can keep that momentum going that they already had out there on the floor.
But Paris, Nick, how is it that they're able to do that when half the bench is in the starting lineup. And yet the bench continues to produce. Like last night, the bench had 39 points.
It's just
Because
it's a
there's
different bench every night. And
Exactly.
yet somehow they make 6 threes a game, and they take the most. So they make the most, take the most threes per game. And Michael, I was just thinking about you. We were talking about 90s basketball, 80s basketball. Can you imagine your bench unit hitting 6 threes a night when you were playing in the 90s?
No.
I mean, unless it was Mark Price was coming off the bench and he was launching every three,
Yeah.
it's just not going to happen, right?
NBA
yeah.
95, yeah.
Yeah.
Take that three, Kate.
Yeah.
Take that three.
Yeah.
Woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just speaks to the cohesion that this group is building and how they're continuing to progress forward as a team, as a collective unit on both ends of the floor. And it is certainly fun to watch. It certainly has been during this month of January. But just like the team, we will turn the page now to February. Let's take a look at what is on tap for this group. So we're in Houston right now. The Thunder plays Houston tomorrow. That's Wednesday. And then they go home, and then they welcome Houston to Oklahoma City to play them on Friday. This starts a stretch. Well, we're actually in the middle of a stretch of a lot of Western Conference opponents. 16 consecutive Western Conference games for the next 16 games. So you can expect a lot of West Coast teams and no Eastern Conference opponents during the whole month of February. So
Well, I think we've all had enough East Coast, right?
I think we're
For now.
Yeah, we're ready to roll.
For now.
Ready to roll west.
Yeah, I'm ready for some warmth and some sun. That'll be very, very nice. But until then, we want to thank you so much for watching. Be sure to keep an eye out. February 2nd, that's this Thursday, the All-Star Reserves will be announced. We are certainly expecting a certain someone to be on that list, so stay tuned for that. Until then, thank you so much for watching and listening. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Thank you so much to the Juiced Man, John Shaft, Michael
There he
Cage,
is.
for
Yeah,
joining
thanks,
us
Mike.
on the pod today.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Hey.
It's great being here.
Appreciate it. And thank you so much to our producer. And until next time, Thunder up and catch you later.